Well, hello there, little one. Can I have you come assist me with something?
Dad says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers.
But I have rock candy. Yeah!
Mister, I would follow you to the ends of the earth.
Excellent. Step into my office.
Okay.
Here, let me help you. Little guy, it's time to go home. Huh, there's this conveniently placed note on top of this building. Oh, crap. Hey, Rangers, welcome to Super Important Reviews. My name's Steve, and today I'll be going over the Bandai and Tamashii Nation SH MonsterArts SpaceGodzilla. This is a request by actually quite a few people since the start of this channel. I've actually had a lot of people actually chime in the comments wanting to see a SpaceGodzilla review. So I finally put one out for you guys. Sorry for the late review. But if you guys don't know who SpaceGodzilla is, he's from the film Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla from the Heisei era, which came out in 1994, which pretty much what happens in the movie. G-cells end up in a black hole. SpaceGodzilla comes out of the black hole. Ends up going to the island where little Godzilla and Godzilla are just kind of chilling. He ends up kidnapping little Godzilla, imprisoning him in crystals, going to the city, wreaking havoc. And Godzilla, with the help of m.o.g.e.r.a, has to go and get his son back. It's like the story of Taken, but in Godzilla form. Because Godzilla has a particular set of skills. And the main reason I have this figure is because I just love SpaceGodzilla. I always thought he was a really cool, unique looking kaiju. Even though he's essentially just Godzilla with crystals, I thought there was enough difference between him and Godzilla to make him his own kaiju, which I always thought was really cool. And he's just a very visually striking monster. And he'd definitely be up there in my favorite Godzilla kaijus of all time, which I still wish I had m.o.g.e.r.a, and I really need to order that guy. But without further ado, for his packaging, getting you out of the way for a second, the front of this box is actually really sweet, where you have the image of SpaceGodzilla on the front of it, which is actually the toy that you see that was inside the packaging. He's not off screen. But has this nice purplish hue to the packaging, has his name on the bottom here, tells you a little bit about the MonsterArts on the clear plastic portion of the package. Came out in 2012. Top of the packaging, get this nice crown look, kind of reminiscent of SpaceGodzilla's little crown on top of his head. For the side of the package, you get more purplish hue of SpaceGodzilla's body in the background, black and white image of SpaceGodzilla in the foreground. Also got his name in metallic silver on the bottom, looks pretty cool. Other side of the packaging, just more of his name. For the back of the packaging, get a lot of nice dynamic poses of SpaceGodzilla. Also, you get to see some of the special effects pieces on the bottom, some stuff I can't understand, and some Lego mumbo jumbo. So, let's get into the review. Alright, so now that we have SpaceGodzilla back in this review, first we're going to go over a few of his accessories, starting with his Corona Beam and stand, which actually is one of the more impressive looking SH MonsterArts figure beam effects, where you have the beam coming out of his mouth here when you have it inserted into it. Now, only one issue, which we'll go over in a second with this freaking little stand, but for the actual beam effect, looks freaking awesome, where you have this nice metallic gold over the beam here, where it still has this really nice translucent look to it, where at the tip of it, or I guess actually the part that inserts into his mouth, you have the metallic silver here, which looks really good, and I love how it just erupts out of his mouth, and it splits off in these multiple paths, because in the film, he actually controlled where his beam actually went, and this kind of helps to replicate that effect, which overall looks freaking awesome. And then you have his normal display here, where it's just this more rocky textured base with a couple of varying shades of brown here. And it also has the crystals ejecting out of the top of it, which is something that is really cool to have with SpaceGodzilla, and this is definitely one of the more striking looking of the display stands for the beam effects. The only issue I have here is where the stand actually hooks into here with mine. You just stick the Tamashii Nation Act stand in this to it. And mine, which it works pretty much like this with every of the stands, it doesn't stay in there very well. Like pretty much any kind of movement, especially when you're sitting it down or just trying to adjust the beam, it pops right out of there, which is kind of annoying. But once you get everything all situated, like this effect piece looks amazing on it. And especially if you have the little Godzilla effects to go with it for an entire display. Because the cool thing about little Godzilla is he actually comes with a display where you can kind of replicate the crystal prison that he was inside of. But it actually looks really sweet when you have it set up next to SpaceGodzilla, where you can have this sitting underneath. or even off to the side to just help replicate more of that crystal look like how it was in the city. And I just love that how each of these figures for this movie actually help to tie in all the figures into one nice cohesive package, and it just works really well. But even by himself, Space Godzilla's accessories are still probably one of the more impressive of the MonsterArts series in terms of the base and how the beam looks. And bringing Space Godzilla in for a closer look, that's called freaking amazing, just like every other SH MonsterArts figure, where it's very reminiscent of the film, where it's this nice, very dark blue skin texture here, which the skin texture overall, for the head anyways, it's very reminiscent of Godzilla with the wrinkles. But what's kind of different, one, get this nice translucent yellow plastic here for his crown. It looks amazing, where it has this almost auburn look to it. The dorsal spines on the back here are actually very pointy and this more metallic shade until it hits the crystals here, which are still metallic but in more of a white tinge to them, which coming down, especially when you get closer to the bottom here, it starts moving back into this more metallic shade. But they look freaking amazing, especially with the tail here. And this clump of crystals for the end of it, which he uses to impale m.o.g.e.r.a with. But moving back to the head details, the teeth have this very nice white glossy paint job over top of them. The inside of the mouth has this nice blood red texture for the tongue, the membrane on the side. Even has a lot of very nice details here on the roof of the mouth. Looks amazing. Then starting to move down the rest of his body here, starting with the neck here, you just notice this more very dark shade of red here, closer to a burgundy. Moving down his neck here into his saggy boobs and his lower abdomen. But for the outside of it, you get this very dark blue, and it's where the details for Godzilla very differentiate between him and Space Godzilla, where now we get the crystal formations here and the skin just kind of wrapping around, forming into it with the shoulder pads here. But the crystals look amazing on his shoulder though, where it's this nice gloss white over top, and then it gets more of a red tinge to it as it starts going into the shoulder, which looks freaking painful. And the one thing that kind of sucks about these crystals on the shoulder is if there's going to be any damage happening to this guy, it's probably going to be with the paint job on the shoulders here, with it being very glossy and smooth. Any kind of nicks to it is probably going to take off some of the paint on here, which you'll see right here. There's a little bit removed right here already. And also on the right shoulder here, you'll notice a couple little nicks on the back here, which is unfortunate, but isn't anything new for any of my Space Godzilla figures. Like, there's going to be anything wrong with the paint. It's usually always with the crystals, just because it's white. Any kind of damage really does show up on those things, which is the only major bummer, but they still look very eye-catching. Like, Space Godzilla is a very visually striking kaiju in terms of drastic color change with the dark blue reds into these more bright white and metallic silvers. Then moving down to the arms, very typical Godzilla looking arms, but they are this very nice dark purple hue. But towards the nails here, you get this nice gloss white that go into a more purple tinge here as they go into the hand. Looks really nice and helps to give them a nice little variety of detail there. And then for his body, again, looks freaking awesome. Really like how they help to convey how the lower abdomen's kind of hooking into the chest region here, like how you've seen in the film. Does look really nice while also not really taking away from the articulation of his upper body here, which is really cool. Then moving down to his legs, look very Godzilla-esque except for the kneecaps here, where they come out in this more of a flower pattern here on his kneecaps here, which is the primary difference. And then more of the gloss white here on the nails, and then you can also see very vibrantly the purple here when it's going into the toes right there. And just to give you guys a better look at the dorsal spines, which are freaking awesome on this figure. It's very visually catching here with the nice geometry and the solid shapes here for all his dorsal spines here. Even at the base of the tail and just moving up towards the tip, the dorsal spines look freaking awesome. But even though the details on Space Godzilla are freaking boss, one thing that this figure is lacking in terms of a lot of the other SH MonsterArts figures is in the articulation category, which for his head can look up about that far using all of his joints here for his neck. Can move down about that far, but on mine, my head actually likes to pop out pretty easily. But it can move down about yay far, which is actually still a pretty good downward look. For his shoulders, has absolutely no articulation here because of the crystals and whatnot. Which in the film, it doesn't really bother me that his articulation is a little bit lacking. Because in the film, he was a very mobile kaiju, and then the figure pretty much accurately represents that. But he does have a decent amount of articulation here for the arms, which can go up about that far, back about that far, upwards about yay far, inwards about that far. Has a decent bend here at the elbow. Also has a rotation here at the lower part of the elbow. Also has a rotation at the hand, which is on a ball joint, so you actually get a decent amount of play with that. Can also rotate a little bit here at the upper part of the bicep, but nothing too crazy. And then for his waist, can look about that far to the left, that far to the right. Has a little bit of a tummy crunch, about that far forward, about that far back, which is not very crazy for any of these SH MonsterArts figures, which is a little bit of a bummer. But it does make sense because the upper body on SpaceGodzilla didn't really move, especially with these parts looking like they were pretty solidly formed on the actual suit. And the figure helps represent that pretty well, while still giving it a little bit of articulation. So it makes sense for the figure. Maybe I'd like to see a little bit more there, but it's suitable. Then for his legs, can move outwards about that far, inwards about that far. Has actually a very nice forward kick where his leg goes up about that far and backwards about that far. And then just show you guys with both legs going outwards and inwards. For his knee, has a bend about that far back, that far forward. Has a decent amount of rotation there too, which is pretty impressive. And then for his feet, can move upwards about that far, downwards about that far. Can rotate all the way around. And then for his tail, starting up here, you get ball joints from here, coming all the way down to right about there. So you get a lot of posability with the tail in this Kaiju here. Just be a little bit careful with the dorsal spines coming into contact with each other when you're moving them, because I kind of worry about some of the paint getting scuffed here a little bit. But he does actually have a wide range of motion here for his tail, which is something that's actually really awesome for these SH MonsterArts figures. Like, he definitely has one of the more impressive tails, and it actually holds a pose very well too. And here we have the SH MonsterArts Godzilla with some other SH MonsterArts figures with the Heisei SpaceGodzilla and Little Godzilla. And here's some NECA Godzilla action figures with the 1994 Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla and the 1954. And here's some other SpaceGodzillas in my collection with the Japanese vinyl SpaceGodzilla here, which I think is from Monster Island, and the Treadmasters version. And here's some NECA Pacific Rim figures of the Hong Kong Brawl, Gypsy Danger, and Leatherback. And here's the cute little chibi SpaceGodzilla. So overall with the SH MonsterArts SpaceGodzilla, his details are phenomenal. While his articulation a little bit lacking compared to a lot of the other SH MonsterArts figure, he more than makes up for it with his accessories. And if you guys have the m.o.g.e.r.a. and Little Godzilla with SpaceGodzilla here, you actually get what I would say is the best looking diorama set pieces out of all the SH MonsterArts figure, without having to go get extra things to make the set pieces look amazing, which is saying something for this figure here. Which I definitely recommend you guys picking up SpaceGodzilla, especially if you're really into the SH MonsterArts line anyways. Then you guys need to be adding Godzilla Space Brother to your collection today. But what do you guys think? Have you guys picked up the SH MonsterArts SpaceGodzilla? What's your favorite Godzilla clone, or is originals just more your thing? Please let us know in the comments. A little closer picture of this guy on Facebook. You want to click the link description below. Help us defeat those Kaijus by hitting that like button. Subscribe to become a Ranger today, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.